Hi, today I am here with YA author Jennifer Hallmark. I love that name, Jennifer, of course, because mine is. I love the Hallmark too. Jennifer, jump in and tell us something about yourself. You have some interesting tidbits in your past that some of these listeners might be interested in hearing about.
Yes, well, I live in Northwest Alabama, and for a good bit of my life, I was a chicken farmer. I married into a family of chicken farmers, and my husband, after we had been married, well, I guess, let's see, my children were 4 years old and 2 years old, and we decided to build chicken houses, which are, I guess, they're about 350 feet long and so wide, and they house around 20,000 chickens in each house.
Oh my
We built
word.
two houses.
Wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine. So you have to tell me, Jennifer, was there a chicken stench? I mean, I know we've had chickens and you go in to clean them up and they're a little smelly.
There is, I guess you get used to it when you're in there every day and you get used to thinking of it just the stench as money. The better we do, the better, the more money we can make. So we worked
Right.
hard to, but we've retired and sold out since then and are doing other things at the moment.
How long have you been writing?
I guess I've really been writing, as so many say, my whole life. I started with poetry as a child. I won a little writing contest in the eighth grade and made $5. And I thought, wow, I could make money at writing. And then I got married and things got kind of busy, but I never really totally quit writing. In 2006, I found a community writing class in the little town near where we live. And I thought, oh, I should try that. And I thought, no, I can't. But I finally talked myself into going. I remember standing in the back of the room when I walked in and there was 8 ladies in there. And I thought, "Oh my goodness, they all know what they're doing and I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And I should just run right now."
Aw.
But the nice thing is, I stuck with it, took another class after that, made two wonderful friends. We still meet even today. And it just started this whole crazy journey that I'm on.
Did you find that those 8 ladies in that room really didn't know everything?
No, they were clueless also. They were like me, they were readers. They had had that little bug bite them that said, "I think I want to write a book." And as far as I know, I've only kept up with two of the writers. Some of them were older later ladies, and I think they've passed on now. But one of them I know has written a couple of books now. She's starting to look deeper into publication, and the other one is working at it. So
Well, that's good. You know, the truth is, I think we walk into situations and with preconceived ideas, and when, I think I would be that same person standing in the back going, "Oh my gosh, everybody knows everything, and I don't know anything, and I'm going to look like an idiot." And I think that's, that insecurity, we all have that. And so we assume everybody else has got it together. And then we find out we're all in the same boat, pretty much.
it's true. I remember 5 years later, I went to the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference. And so I went from a room full of 8 people to my first conference, which was like 400 people.
I,
And
I
I really felt out of place there.
I just went to Blue Ridge for my first time. Excuse me, had a frog in my throat. My first time this last year in May. But I had gone to my very first time I went to a conference was in Northern California. It was Mount Hermon Christian Writers Conference.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I have. That's
When
another
I
big one.
It's a big one, and I went every year for, gosh, I probably was at 10 or more of those conferences. And the first time I walked in, I'd never done anything like that. I drove because I we lived in Northern California at the time, so I was able to drive to it. And I thought I got the flu. I was so sick. My muscles were aching. I felt I was going to die. I was fearful. It was horrible. And it's amazing how that can really I think the enemy wants to get in there and stop us when we try to do something that the Lord is calling us to do. And fortunately, I made some good friends myself. In fact, I still have a friend she's published as almost as much as I have, and she's from Canada, and she was here. She went to the Blue Ridge with me last year. Flew down here. We'd go to conferences together. She'd fly into the States. So those friendships you make when you start writing, people that you connect with, I think they can be lifetime. They're incredible.
Oh, people ask me sometimes, what have you gotten most out of writing? And to me, it's not really even the publication and the, people saying, "Oh, you're a writer," and different things. It's as much as I enjoy that, but it's been the people I've met.
It's relationships.
And God has just opened so many different relationships with people that have even helped me to grow as a person, different cultures, different races, just a lot of different. And in Alabama, sometimes when you're in a very rural area, you're kind of cut off from a lot of differences.
Right.
So it's really helped me, I think, in my writing even.
You feel like there's not a lot of diversity where you live.
Not, when I think our biggest town in the area is 3,000 people. So there's just, a lot of farmers and things like that. It's a very farming, rural area.
Yeah, it would make it a little difficult. I grew up in the Bay Area in California, so there was a lot of diversity and a lot of experiences that were pretty interesting. So it was coming to Tennessee and being in the rural Southern, when I wanted to write Southern. I write Southern fiction as well, and I
Mhm.
wanted to be in that. I love it. I love everything about it. So to me, that's new, So wherever you are, you have to grow in order to do something that the Lord's calling us to do. It requires growth. So you have two books that you've published, but this last one just came out last month. Can you tell us something about that? Is it Smoking Flax?
Yes, Smoking Flax is a story that takes place in 1978 and 1984. I call it Disney's The Kid Meets Back to the Future. It's classified as a young adult Christian sci-fi, only because there is what I call Southern time shifting involved in the story. Um, it was a really fun story to write. It came from the same as Jessie's Hope did. The story came from writing prompts that we did in our local writing group, and we wrote short stories from them. And both of my novels started out as a short story. And I've written a lot of short stories, but these two caught the attention of people. They were like, "Oh, wow, I really like that. I want to know what's going to happen." So when I had the idea of a 12-year-old boy named Reed Anderson from Louisiana who was in an abusive relationship with his father, and he just wanted to get away, I thought, oh, that could be an interesting story there.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of grew from there.
Is it hard for you? And when I think about, I write short stories as pre-order gifts for my novels. So usually I'm writing, a 90,000 word novels. But the short story, when I give it to my critique group and they're looking at it, they're like, okay, well, where's the rest of the story? Or people will read that and say, well, where's the rest of the story? They want more. Do you have that problem that people are wanting to see it go further than what you are writing in your in what you do?
Well, yes, I because of some different issues, I haven't been able to publish the second book from Jessie's Hope. And I have people all the time saying, when are you going to have the next book out? And it's kind of tied up right now, but hopefully at some point I will. I'm working right now on the second book for Smoking Flax, and it has been interesting the last few months trying to finish edits and everything, start marketing, and try to keep involved with a new story
Yeah.
to have ready for the publisher for another, you know.
A
Uh,
lot of juggling, isn't there?
yes, I think that's the biggest thing I've learned about the writing life is that you're always kind of I don't multitask because don't think you really can. You can really just do one thing at a time. But I will work short times on one project and shift to something else. And and kind of it's kind of funny because I'm a perfectionist at heart and a list maker and everything, but when I write, I have to be totally I have no I'm a discovery writer. I have very little idea of where I'm going.
Well, you're
I
a
just start
pantser.
the journey. Yes. And which makes it hard at times. And I make notes along the way, and things start unveiling themselves. In my
Mhm.
second story, an idea just came to me a couple nights ago of, oh, you need to add this to that story that you're working on. So I made a note and wrote it in with my other notes and used Scrivener and have just little postcards everywhere of notes and story. And
Scrivener is a very handy writing tool, isn't it? I use Scrivener too. You're able to move things around quite easily on there.
yes.
So you are a seat of the pantser. So when you say you start with an idea, like when I'm writing a story, I have either a glimmer of a theme or I have a character in my head that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with. And then I used to feel like I had to plot it all out, but I found that God shifts things around where I was always having to plot. I'm sure that's probably how it works for you. If you put too much in there, he's going to shift it around. And then all of a sudden you've got characters you weren't intending to have doing things that you weren't intending them to do. And it shifts the whole trajectory of the story around. So do you find that to be the case when you're writing?
Yes, I can't really plot. I usually start with a character. In both Jessie's Hope and Reed, I started with the main character and just started almost like daydreaming during the first weeks of what they can be and where they can go. I start asking questions about what's happening. I love that in uh, Reed's story in Smoking Flax, I have the basis of characters in my head, okay, as far as race and culture and different things. And at one point, I was like several chapters in, I'm like, oh, this person is African American. I didn't realize that. So I add that to it, and this person is Hispanic, and they kind of grow. I don't really have, Reed ends up being half Greek with a Greek heritage that he's very proud of. And so that kind of grows with the story, the characters do.
It's almost like
Yeah.
you're getting to know the characters along with your readers.
Yes. I mean, honestly, it's I'm surprised all the time. I'll just be sitting there writing something and I'll start crying because I'm like, oh my goodness, this poor character, you know. It's just
That's what makes
crazy.
it so real. That's, I think, I really believe the thing that makes writing continue to be exciting is that it is a surprise.
Hmm.
You're seeing God coming in and moving things in a way that is so unexpected that it's exciting to see that, to see his hand in there. So I agree with you. It can be such a surprise. So you said you have um, another book for Jesse's Hope and another book for Smoking Flax. So are they series books that you have in your mind? Like, is it the same story continuing, or is it other characters in the same series?
No, they're two different series. Jesse's Hope is a Southern family drama set in contemporary time. I think it actually starts in 2018, and the sequel was running through 2019. And I think there's just going to be two of those. I had
Okay.
an idea for a third and still have that on the back burner, but I have a feeling it might end up being a 2-book series. Smoking Flax, I actually have an idea for a 3-book series.
So I think I asked the question in a way that was confusing. What I was asking is if it's the same in each of those two series. I realize they're two
Hmm.
separate series.
Oh, okay.
Are they the same characters in each of the books, or are you switching to different characters connected somehow to the first group of characters? Like with Jesse's Hope, do you have the same main characters in there playing main characters, or do you have side characters that come in, or how do you manage that as a series?
No, they're not connected. The first Jesse's Hope, the second book was about another couple in the first book that came out, and Reed's story is the first Smoking Flax book, and the second story is Talitha's story, his friend.
Okay.
And I have the different characters intermingling in. Now, in the second book, there'll be a few you probably won't see there. And in the third book, the same way. But it will highlight certain characters in the story as we go along.
Gotcha. There's so many different ways that you can do a series. I remember when do you know who Steve Lobby is?
Yes.
I was agented with his agency for a time, and he suggested as a series, rather than having the same characters come along, set them in the same town.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that was a way to tie it together as a series, but then you're not stuck in
Hmm.
with the same characters. And so that's what helped me do something different. But I know there are a lot of people, readers like to see your characters show up in another book. When they grow attached to a character, they want to see them again. They want to have some kind of hope in what happened in their lives later on. So I think that's a real draw for people.
Right, I agree. I've already had a few people tell me, they're like, "What? Reed's not the main character in the second book?" I'm like, "No, he's still there. You'll still get to see him." But I write uh, these books have been written in first person,
Hmm.
so that makes it's a whole different. It was a whole different learning curve because Jesse's Hope was written in third person. But I kept trying to write the books in third person, and I kept switching back. And finally, I thought, okay, this story has to be told in first person. So,
I did the exact same thing. I had finished my first book and I could not. I went to rewrite and the rewrites came out in first person and I kept trying to switch back to third and it was like, no. So
mhm.
that's where I found my voice as first person. So that's interesting. Um, and the other thing is I would think now I know that there are some books that do series and usually they're say crime drama books. I know Sue Grafton did a whole, I don't know if you know who she is. She did like
I
Case
do.
Alibi. So
Yes.
that whole series of books is based on one character. And when you see how long I started reading those, my gosh, back in the 80s, I think I started reading her books. And then the 26 books. And of course, she passed away before she finished them. And they finally were able to finish them up. But you're talking about all these years in between, and you have the same character who doesn't really grow much. And technology has changed, but she's stuck in the 80s.
Oh,
She can't
yeah.
all of a sudden have Kinsey Millhone walking around with a cell phone or can click on a computer and all that. So I find that would be really difficult to do that with a character. Plus, if your character is growing, there comes a point where you're kind of done growing them and you need to move into something else.
Hmm.
The crime drama series works really well because you can keep it all in the same place. But for your character Reed, if you were to continue on with his story, I mean, after a while, I would think you would get a little bit bored with him.
Yeah, Reed is an interesting character. In this second book, him and Talitha are both 19. So we're moving up in age, and the next book is going to probably take place shortly after the second book. So I'm hoping to keep them close enough together to where it's almost like a continuation
Hmm.
of the story. In Smoking Flax, he actually starts as a 19-year-old and then he's thinking back to his 13th summer. And we end him as a 19-year-old. So I'm ready to go right into the next story. And it's just kind of the way it fit together.
What is your reading? I know it's YA, but what is your target reading age group for your books?
Well, it can be, I think it's 12 to 25. It's really funny though, because so many of the readers so far have been all ages. I've had, I think it's been out a month. I already have like 11 reviews. And one lady, it was an older lady, and she put, because I could see her picture, and she was like, I really liked the story a lot, gave it 5 stars. She said, I didn't understand it all, but, and I thought, well, good, if you liked it, if you were able, I tried to make it simple enough for a 12-year-old, but enough intensity and suspense and stuff that other people would enjoy it also.
Right. That's kind of a
So,
hard thing to juggle.
yes,
I mean, you
it,
think about who your target audience is. For me, it's women that are in their probably 30s to 40s, but the ones that I find that are grabbing my books the fastest are my church ladies who are older than I am. And it's kind of crap. When's your next book coming out? So yeah, I had one, it was pretty cute. This lady was reading one of them and she's like, if you put her back with Nikki, I'm never going to speak to you again. So they get very involved in the stories. It's pretty fun when you
yes.
have that interaction with people,
Hmm.
one-on-one as they're reading it. It can be pretty good. So, can you tell us a little bit about your writing day? What does it look like for you? If you said you're juggling a few different things at one time, and then you're doing marketing. So, do you have any kind? You're a list person. So, as a list person, you're probably very organized. Do you have a set schedule you try to go by, or is it just?
I think when I first started writing in 2006, I was really scheduled. Um, Over the years, different things have come about, and especially the last probably 3 or 4 years with my mother's health declining. Even though she still gets around, it's just been scheduling has been almost impossible between doctor visits and the 6 grandkids who came along just all quickly.
Yeah.
So if I have time like today, I like to get up. Mainly on Mondays, I like to do email, work on my blog, things like that. Let's say Tuesday through Friday would be the days I'd work on books. I usually do a few emails or a few articles early.
You're a morning person?
No,
No.
but I need to do it in the morning. So I start out. My husband also works 12-hour swing shift.
Oh, wow.
So on and it's 3 off, 2 on, 2 on, 3 off. So it's pretty crazy. But I mainly try to sit down at some point and get into the story. Just immerse myself in any quiet time. And I've written away from home a few times, but I just feel like I do better here.
Hmm.
But like I said, I've done both. I'm bad to write articles in doctors' offices. I'll start pinning down notes and things for articles and things for my blog that I need to do. And before my podcast went on sabbatical, I would work on my podcast episodes while I was with Mother at the doctor.
So tell us a little bit about your blog. What do you blog and your podcast? What type of people are you podcasting with?
Okay, on the podcast, I have 3 seasons so far. It's called Determined to Dance. It's a 3 to 5 minute solo cast where I just talk about a subject about persevering in a chaotic world. And so it's really encouragement. There's a prayer at the end. Um, I run little series of within there, like I might work on perseverance and break that into 3, podcasts and things. But I make them short. They're most of them run around 5 minutes.
Hmm.
And I was on Christian Mix 106, which is an online radio station, the times that I've done this, and found out, that my podcast was going to 58 different countries
Wow.
around the world. And I know I was looking at my list of things, because I do list everything, God, that I wanted to do, and one was to speak to women around the world. And I'm like, wow, God, I'm getting on up in age, and that's just, I don't even speak to people around me. It just has never opened. But
Yeah.
then he opens this podcast, and it was really cool. I did a solo cast. There's a few interviews on it, but I just felt like um, people like me that were busy, it was nice to have like a 5-minute
Right.
encouraging thought a day. And a
So
lot of people did interviews. So
were you doing that daily? When you were not on sabbatical, were you doing a daily podcast?
no, it was weekly.
And how were you getting ideas maybe from your Bible reading or getting ideas from something you read or
Yeah, just all that. Sometimes even the pastor at our church on Sunday would preach something, and it would just niggle something within me, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's good. That would go right with what I'm doing. And yeah.
yeah, probably once you can have that kind of control, you're not trying to find interviewees to come on and talk about different things. It probably is a little bit easier. And how encouraging for people to hear that. It's like a little devotional that you can get every
Mhm.
day, which is very cool. And then on your
Yes.
blogging, are you doing the same thing with your blogging? And is that
No,
blogging on your website? Just so I'll put that in the show notes. Your website will go in the show notes. So does your blog go
yes.
on your website?
Yes, the blog is on my website, and you can go and listen to any of the podcast episodes on my website.
Perfect.
The first season is a little rougher. I was still learning with the equipment and stuff, and at times I had some troubles, but it was still pretty good. And the second and third seasons were much better equipment-wise as far as the podcast. The blog is actually a multi-authored blog. I'm trying to think. I think there's 5 of us on it now, 5 or 6. I'd have to go back and look, but it is Friday fiction, books from off the beaten track. So we're taking books that are different and putting them out there. We touch on to fantasy, science fiction, horror, um, slipstream, time travel, just all the different categories that you normally don't see.
Right.
So we have different writers that share different things, and they're both Christian, and there's some secular too. So we put disclaimers with some of them. If it's like I tend to do young adult and middle grade books, K.A. Ramstad, she does children's books. Cami Cami Woodall does horror. Amanda and Melissa both tend to do a lot of fantasy, and Arthur does science fiction.
Hmm.
So we just kind of hit a wide variety of
So you're blogging about books is what you're doing.
yes. Kind
Okay.
of, telling what we think about, and only in positive ways.
Right.
I read blogs that trash books and things, or they didn't like them, but I'm like, no, I just want to share books that I think I would give 4 or 5 stars to if it
Well,
was an Amazon rating.
people don't need to be I mean, it's not helpful to trash them because you want to
Yeah.
encourage people to read them, not discourage people from reading them.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
And I
that's
know one lady on our blog, she blogged about Dracula. And I thought, wow, I don't know, think I've ever read that. It was a fascinating book.
oh,
And it
really?
was, it's a godly book. I mean, the people on it are Christians trying to fight this vampire. It's written way back then. And, you know, I was
How
amazed.
interesting. Was it, by any chance, was that an Anne Rice book?
No, it's Bram Stoker, way
Okay.
back,
Yeah,
the
what,
original.
that's a real
Yes.
old one.
Yes.
Interesting. I know Anne Rice did a lot
Yes.
of that, and then she became a Christian and switched her writing genre. So
Mm.
that was, I thought, was very interesting.
Yeah, it
You
is.
just never know. I think we can be so close-minded. I know I can be close-minded. You have these preconceived ideas of what people are putting out there or what, you know, without giving it a fair shot. And I think we close ourselves off to things that can be very inspiring and it's inspiring our own writing, but just being inspiring to be supportive to other people that need that,
I
which is
agree.
why, I started this podcast because I wanted writers to have a vehicle to market their books in an easy way, something simple, nothing difficult. But I'm hoping that as it moves on, we get more and more people. I've met some wonderful authors such as yourself, new to me people that fascinating because everybody has a different story. They come from a different place or it blows my mind how we are all, especially when you're writing in the Christian market, you're all coming from a different brokenness and God is empowering us to use that in order to comfort or to inspire or to um, help other people in their brokenness. And I think that's a powerful thing.
Oh, I totally agree. At times I do new releases on my blog too. Just different friends and people I know that have a book coming out, and I'll just, contact them and say, hey, I noticed your book's coming out. Can I share it?
Nice.
And I just do a simple share of, the book blurb and where you can buy it and stuff, and just to also help other people.
Yeah. I think we need to be in community. We're all aiming to do the same thing, just with a different
Definitely.
voice. So here, let's see, I'm trying to think if we have any other questions. You've given me so much information about your books and your writing journey and and just how you work. It's interesting. I do have one author, the first one I talked to, she actually talks her book. She can you imagine doing that? I can't even imagine. I have to see the words as I'm doing them, but everybody has a different way of working and it's just fascinating to me. So I appreciate you sharing all of your information with us, and I'll be sure and put your website in the show notes, and it'll have where they can connect with you on your podcast and your blog posts. We'll have your books and the links for people to buy those in your show notes as well. And I just wish you the greatest luck, Jennifer, in all that you do. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me today. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and I'm just going to get back to work on that next novel so my readers will have it, and I can keep sharing, inspiring things, I hope, with other people.
And when you're ready when you're ready to launch the next one, let me know. We'll get you back on here and we can share that one too.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Sure. It's been a pleasure, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Okay, is that all?
Hold on.
Was I supposed to say something?
You're
Sorry.
okay. I'll cut it off. My